Catching in Gen 2 was hilariously busted. As somebody that is a huge fan of Pokemon, as somebody that has watched other Lyra made a website content, I'm very curious what their thoughts and opinions are on catching in Gen 2, as well as what facts they bring to the table. That being said, without further ado, let's get into it.
If you want to catch every single Pokemon in Gen 2, you will, at some point, have to learn about the catching mechanics and how to make the best of them. I was in that position, and what I have learned about Pokemon Gold, Silver, and Crystal, and how broken these games are, was so funny, I had to share it.
Going back to Gen 2 semi-recently, breeding works completely different. You have to remember, I VGC breed, so I know Ditto, Masuna method for that's shiny specifically, right? IVs being passed down, Modern Destiny, not Everstone. Breeding alone is different, and we didn't have Dust Balls back then. We didn't have Quick Balls. We didn't have certain modified balls to help catch certain things.
Core mechanics of the series, Capture, is governed by a formula which gets tweaked almost every generation.
I actually didn't know this.
In the first games of the series, Red and Blue...
I knew that it was a formula. I knew it was an algorithm, but I didn't know that it was tweaked every gen.
Most of the calculations do not make any sense and are really confusing. Understandable given how primitive Gen 1 was.
The actual sprite is true. Gen 1, especially Red and Blue. Oh my god. Even some green, red and green over in Japan had some interesting ones.
Gold and Silver solved this by revamping the entire formula, leading to a more straightforward and easier to understand and explain process.
Right.
In Gen 2, there are 3 determining factors taken into account during a capture: HP, statuses, and balls.
Yes, the type of ball depends, and can't remember why. There was something in regards to the capture formula in Gen 1 that the Great Ball was actually the better pick, if I understand it correctly. Pokemon's weird, especially old Pokemon. Pokemon's weird.
Let's start with hit points. As expected, weakening a Pokemon by lowering its HP increases your catch rate. The formula used is based on the difference between max HP and current HP, and is linear, which means any damage dealt increases the catch chance. At 1 HP, you almost triple the base chance of capturing a Pokemon,
false swipe,
without taking other factors into account.
Why false swipe would be great.
Note, however, that the increase is relative to each Pokemon's catch chance. For example, Ladybug goes from a 33.50% catch chance at max HP to 98.49% at 1 HP.
Pokemon have their native catch chance.
Goes from 0.78% to 1.17.
There was a time in modern Pokemon, I can't remember when it was specifically, but it really felt like, I guess it was like Auraz era, right? How Rayquaza was super easy, and there were other legendaries that were like super easy. I don't know how they tweaked the formula in that generation. But yeah, no, this is old Pokemon
Still,
catch rates.
Everything is in order, working as intended, and more importantly, makes sense for the player.
Yeah.
A Pokemon should
logical.
be easier to catch as it becomes weaker. And it is. Great. Next, statuses. There are 5 status effects in the game that can affect capture, separated in 2 tiers. In the first tier, we have Sleep and Freeze. And in the second, we have Burn, Poison, and Paralysis.
Right, and that's, as I've always understood, Sleep and Freeze would be the higher catch. It would give you the higher catch chance, where like Paralysis, and I can logically justify it as Paralysis is a continuous, consistent effect, as with Burn and Poison, say like Shed Skin or something like that. That's not in Gen 2, because that's an ability. Those are Gen 3. But yeah, Sleep and Freeze always gave you the better chances.
Each tier increases the catch chance by a flat amount at the end of the calculation, by 10 and 5 respectively, out of 256. Meaning 3.91% for the first tier and 1.95% for the second.
I didn't know it was that low. Didn't know
that's how things were supposed to work, but that's where we get a taste of the Gen 2 bustedness. Here's how it actually works. Sleep and Freeze increase your catch chance by 3.91, while Burn, Poison, and Paralysis do absolutely nothing.
That tracks, actually. That sounds about right from what I experienced in Crystal, having gone back through it the past couple years.
That's right. Due to an oversight, the check in place for these statuses always fails, meaning no increase. The intended increase wasn't that significant in the first place, but could have helped a lot for rare and legendary Pokemon. So when it comes to statuses, either you sleep or just chuck balls. Or you could get really lucky with an ice attack, but I wouldn't count on it.
Yeah.
Finally, we have the balls. And that's where things get hilarious. But before we laugh, we first need to learn the basics of capture. See, every species of Pokemon has a fixed number, indicating how easily they can be caught.
This is why you'll see, like, a Machop is easier to catch than a Machoke. Technically, you can't find a wild Machamp. Not in most games. Or, like, in Gen 2, how you'll have a Ladybug, which is easier to catch than a Gligar or a Skarmory, right? Every Pokemon has their native number, which determines how easy it is to catch.
Number is called catch rate. And the lower the catch rate, the harder the Pokemon is to capture. As a rule, the rarer a Pokemon is, the lower its catch rate.
Old Raikou hits different.
In Gen 2, balls increase a Pokemon's catch rate by a factor dependent on ball strength. For example, the Pokeball multiplies the catch rate by 1,
just a flat 1.
the Great Ball by 1.5, and the Ultra Ball by 2, which...
Can't stand Ultra Balls. Like, I get the aesthetic. I understand it. And normally, black and yellow, like, I should like it. I don't know. I'm a Great Ball stan. We've had many conversations in the Discord server about, well, Kip, what about, what's your favorite Pokeball? Great Ball. 100%. I get so much slack for it.
Which makes sense.
Black.
As balls get better, they have a bigger impact on your chance to successfully capture a Pokemon. I'm saying that because that is not at all how balls worked in Gen 1. They behave in a way you did not expect, and the Great Ball was actually the better ball. See, you know what? I'm not gonna get into Gen 1 catching mechanics.
That would be its own video, honestly. But, like, yeah, no, Gen 1 was a lot different. I don't remember the particulars of it. It was a lot different in terms of Pokeball.
But it was
action.
Really dumb. The other two...
It was... You have to understand, Gen 1 was an essay in its craft, right? Like, it was, for all intents and purposes, the first published work. That's why we... You know, the Spaghetti Code, and it is justification of that as well, right? Where we had Leech Seed. If Leech Seed was interacting with Toxic, it was dealing way more damage than intended. Focus Energy was, instead of increasing crit, it was decreasing crit, right? Speed being inherently tied to crit rate in Gen 1. That's why things like Persian with Slash were absolutely insane. So Gen 1 was an essay in its craft. Gen 2 did a lot to overhaul a lot of systems. And, you know, the logic is that every subsequent generation we have more and more perfections and additions and edits to the systems to make it a better game. And really, that's even tracked through Scarlet and Violet. It's a lot easier to make a competitive Pokemon in Scarlet and Violet than it is in Gen 2, Gen 3, even Gen 4. Not to say that there's not still improvement, such as, you know, maybe a negative bottle cap, because getting 0 IVs is still a very, very hard thing to do. So, for example, if you are running a Trick Room team, you want a 0 IV Torkoal, there's not really a thing outside of breeding very specific things to get that 0 IV, which at that point you could have people try to gen in Pokemon or modify stats, which is then you do risk a tournament DQ if it doesn't pass a hack check. So Pokemon competitive things. I digress though. Yeah, Gen 2 did a lot to fix Gen 1 specifically.
Normal balls, or the Master Ball, which is an automatic success, and the Park Ball.
I think there was
catching contest.
Maybe it's Playground Rumor. I'll have to go back and find a Gen 1 video on catching. I thought the Master Ball could theoretically fail.
Which is equivalent to a Great Ball with a 1.5 multiplier. So far, so good. Everything is straightforward and works as you would expect. But Gen 2 also added a way to get special balls. Give Kurt in Azalea Town colored apricorns found in the world, and he will turn them into specific balls with specific requirements.
I actually really like Kurt as an idea. I think it might be a little dated. I don't think people would necessarily appreciate it coming back now when you can just buy a bunch of different balls, right? But I mean, I like Kurt as an idea, and it was very thematic for the time. And sure, you got kind of, as long as you had the apricorns, you got peace fed these. But yeah, he was cool. I liked it as a concept. Gen 2 had a lot of heart to it.
If the Pokemon you're trying to catch fulfills these requirements, your ball will boost the catch rate significantly. If it doesn't, the catch rate is unaffected, turning it into a basic Pokeball. Now, I don't know if the developers were short on time, drunk, or if Kurt is just terrible at his job, but most of these balls do not have the intended effect. So it is time to play a game. Working or busted. We start with the Lure Ball, made from blue apricorns.
I think that works.
The in-game description states, a ball for Pokemon hooked by a rod.
No, this one doesn't work, does it?
Multiplies by 3 the catch rate of a Pokemon if you are fishing.
I don't think it works as intended,
Not the most useful ball, as most fish Pokemon are easy to catch, but still working as intended.
Oh, never mind, I'm sure I'm wrong.
Next, the Friend Ball, made from green apricorns. A ball that makes Pokemon friendly. This ball multiplies the catch rate by 1 and sets the friendship value of a caught Pokemon to 200.
I don't know if this one works or not. Friendship in Gen 2 is one that is a concept I really haven't delved too far into. Obviously, Umbreon and Espeon, right? Friendship does exist. I know it exists. I don't know the back end of it, if that makes sense.
Again, working well. See, any caught Pokemon starts with a default friendship value of 70.
Right.
The Friend Ball gives you a significant boost and is actually a good ball. So where are the broken balls I keep talking about? Well, let's look at the Fast Ball, made from white apricorns. A ball for catching fast Pokemon. The Fast Ball multiplies the catch rate by 4 if the wild Pokemon is Magnemite, Grimer, and Tangela.
I thought it was going to be if it's over a certain speed threshold, like if it has a base speed of 85 or above or something like that, which wouldn't be super hard to check because it would check, you could do a check for base stats pretty easily, right? But if it's Magnemite, Grimer, Tangela, yeah, that's not what that description says to me. That one's a little strange.
What? What? How does that even work? More than just being busted, it's also very specific. How does that happen? Turns out, the ball is supposed to work for all the Pokemon in 3 different tables. Pokemon with a 10% chance to flee, 50% chance to flee, or 100% chance to flee. Instead, it just works for the first 3 Pokemon from the first table, which happen to be Magnemite, Grimer, and Tangela.
Sounds like an oversight.
A ball that works on 3 out of 251 Pokemon.
I mean, look, if you really need that Magnemite, Grimer, or Tangela, I can tell you that I'm a Grimer Muck fan. I generally name my Mucks Danny DeVito, like an absolute Chad.
Pretty niche. Next, the Heavy Ball, from black apricorns. A ball for catching heavy Pokemon.
This still sees a lot of use.
Which works as intended. The heavier the Pokemon is...
See, here's the thing. It can already do background calculations because of the Pokemon species. It can already check what the Pokemon species weight is. So the fastball is a weird oddity in this.
The bigger the increase to the catch rate. Although, there are 2 strange things to note about the Heavy Ball. First, it is the only ball which does not multiply the catch rate, but adds a set value to it.
Okay. So like 2 plus 2 and 2 times 2 can be the same thing, but 2 plus 3 and 2 times 3 are different. Interesting.
Which means its use is not just limited to heavy Pokemon, but rare heavy Pokemon.
What?
In fact, in practice, this ball results in a significant increase for only Lugia and Snorlax.
I was under the impression that in Gen 3, I thought we used this for Groudon, because Groudon is a thick boy, if you will. I'm pretty sure we use this for Groudon in Gen 3. Heavy Ball's nothing to sleep on.
That's it.
I didn't know this, actually.
For every single other Pokemon, you're better off just using an Ultra Ball. Also, it is the only ball which makes your catch rate worse if you do not fulfill its requirements.
Because it adds, yeah.
Additionally, while this ball works in Gold and Silver, in Pokemon Crystal,
What?
the game misinterprets junk data, resulting in a plus 40 catch rate increase for Kadabra, Tauros, and Sunflora.
That's wild to me, actually. God, I don't I'm not a coder. I don't understand code on the back end. Like, I can, like, justify certain concepts, right? This is wild to see how this translated over.
Instead of the intended minus 20.
Huh.
On the topic of busted balls, the level ball from Red
That was a pun.
Apricorns. A ball for lower level Pokemon. It seemingly works as intended.
Okay.
The increase is correctly based on the difference in level between your Pokemon and the wild Pokemon.
Okay.
The issue here is hidden. For some reason, using a level ball bypasses the catch rate formula, resulting in the level ball increase being the only factor taken into account.
Huh.
If the opposing Pokemon is at 1 HP and sleeping, well, too bad, it doesn't matter. Made from pink apricorns.
That's interesting, actually. I mean, I'm also weird because I played enough of the Pokemon TCG when Ultra Ball wasn't in the format. I think this was like, God, wasn't this like ADP? Zacian ADP era? Level Ball was big at some point around there. And so I see Level Ball and I'm just like trying to find a Pokemon from your deck with 90 or less HP. And I'm just like, wow, very specific thing to like recall in my memory.
The Love Ball is made for catching the opposite gender.
Right.
In practice, the Love Ball works on Pokemon of the same species of your current Pokemon, which is not clear at all from the description, but still working as intended, and of the same sex. That's right, this ball does the exact opposite of what it says.
It's perfect. I love it.
I mean, it's not like
there's layers to this, unintentional layers.
I have a problem with it. I just did not know 1999 Game Freak was so open.
Progressive, if
you will. If
you
have a thing for same-sex relationships, no need to be shy and hide it in the code. Anyway,
it's an oversight.
But certainly not least, the Moon Ball, made from yellow apricorns. A ball for Moonstone evolvers. Simple, to the point, easy to understand.
Yeah.
This ball multiplies by 4 the catch rate of Pokemon who evolve using a burn heal.
Oh yeah, I remember hearing about this. To this day, there is still no Pokemon that evolves with a burn heal item. That's probably just a wrong value being assigned to Moonball. So instead of, because right, I'm assuming it would check for the item, right? Moonstone is X item in the system. Burn heal is Y item in the system. Instead of X, it's pulling from Y.
A burn heal. This one's my favorite. They messed up the item ID. So now it checks for Pokemon evolving via the burn heal method.
It's perfect.
In case you do not know, out of 251 Pokemon, a grand total of 0 evolve using a burn heal.
I mean, we have weird evolutions like Surfetch and Runegrigus. This would actually be a really cool Easter egg and nod back to this glitch. If Pokemon Company wanted to do this, just make a Pokemon that like maybe it's like on fire, right? Kind of like a Chimchar Infernape kind of line thing. And you use a burn heal and it turns into like, I don't know, like swole Pokemon or something. I think it'd be cool as a little neat Easter egg.
Basically turning the Moonball into a prettier Pokeball.
It's just a Pokeball.
Actually, the Moonball is worse than a Pokeball.
Amazing.
Because you can buy a Pokeball. In Gold and Silver, you can only ask Kurt to make 1 special ball per day. This was changed in Crystal, where you can give all your apricorns of the same color at once. But the apricorns themselves are limited. That's right, there is only 1 apricorn tree of each color in the world, on Route 37, 42, and Azalea Town.
Yeah, you're playing a while.
And they also take a day to blossom, which made these special balls really rare and inconvenient to get.
I never bothered.
And explains why their brokenness flew under many people's radar, myself included. Nobody used them.
I never used them. I just use Great Balls.
Or not in high enough quantity to notice the issues. funnily enough, it is probably the reason these glitches did not get noticed early enough to be fixed.
Right, I could see that.
To be honest, I don't mind the special balls being completely busted. It adds to the charm of the first two Pokemon generations.
It does.
Incredibly broken games, and yet so much fun to play. And there we have it. I am going to start the Gen 2 Living Dex at some point, but I had to share this before starting. It's pretty great. I hope you found this as funny as I did and enjoyed this silly video.
This was great, actually.
Thank you for your time, and I wish you a wonderful day.
This was amazing. And in the outro, right, where Pokemon Gen 1...
Oh, yeah. Oh, come on.
Oh, that's going to be me in my head now. That's perfect. No, this was great. I absolutely love this. So, in regards to things with lack of usage, right, flying under the radar, right, that kind of thing. If you have, say you're playing an FPS, say you're playing Call of Duty, right, and there's a new pistol or something that just doesn't have the damage output. Say it's supposed to be like a 45 ACP, but like it doesn't just doesn't do damage. The 44 mag, 9 mil, they're just better, right? So its usage is lower. Or say you have a champion in something like League who their kit just doesn't jive with a lot of players, so naturally they have a lower pick rate. And, you know, you're obviously going to be balancing your metagame for your big players. You're going to be balancing your metagame for, say, Ari's dominant in League, or say you have a 44 Magnum in Call of Duty, right? That's just oppressive for some reason because maybe it's the damage output or something. And those become the priority. So, you know, people not necessarily using the Kurt Apricorn balls in Gen 2, it not necessarily coming to light, that does make a lot of sense from a usage standpoint. And lastly, in regards to Gen 1 being bad, quote unquote, buggy broken, if you will, and Gen 2 being slightly less buggy and broken, look, since the beginning of the series, and games in general, games have always had issues, games have always had bugs, games have always had glitches, games have always had things about them. No game is perfect. And I know there's gonna be people that are like, well, Ocarina of Time, Breath of the Wild, no game is perfect. Every game will have some sort of flaw. Every game will have some sort of bugs. It's just the medium. It's just gaming. This series, specifically in Pokemon, I know a lot of people are frustrated with Scarlet and Violet. I'm frustrated with a couple aspects of Scarlet and Violet, namely glitches that can actually brick the final fight, glitches that can wipe your save file if you transport from another medium. I think it was Pokemon Go specifically. Glitches in the DLC that... it doesn't check the trainer count, so you're stuck in the DLC story. I think the difference with Gen 1 and Gen 2 is that there was a game with a lot of heart behind it. I liked Scarlet and Violet. I did. I like Sword and Shield. I think that there were some cool games there. I think, you know, Scarlet and Violet had some performance issues. Some of them seem to have been rectified at this point in time as I returned to do some VGC stuff. And it's kind of neat to see. It really is. And people are willing to overlook imperfections, flaws, impurities, bugs, glitches, as long as the game is good and they feel it respects their time. As soon as the game doesn't feel like it respects their time, as soon as people feel like it's just a cash grab, people feel like it's just not worth it, people are really going to stick to their guns, quote unquote, and have issues. But what are your thoughts? Did you like Gen 2 the best? Did you not like Gen 2? What are your thoughts on Gen 2 and the Pokeballs? What is your favorite Pokeball? Let me know in the comment section. All that fun stuff. And I do absolutely recommend this video and this creator as well if you haven't seen them. Excellent content. Definitely go check them out, and I'll see you in the next one.